You know what's funny? AI was supposed to make content creation faster, but somehow my workflow has become more complicated than ever. One tool writes my script, another generates images, a different one animates those images. Then I need another platform for music, another for editing, another just to organize everything. And by the time I finish one video, I've spent almost as much time managing software as actually creating something. So I started wondering, what if I could do everything in one place? Not just generate images, not just make videos, I mean the entire process. Planning, writing, storyboarding, generating visuals, turning them into video, editing, exporting, without opening another AI tool. So today, that's exactly what I'm going to test. I'm giving myself one challenge: create an entire YouTube video using only Flova. No ChatGPT, no Midjourney, no Kling, no CapCut, no extra software. If I need to leave Flova even once, the challenge fails, and by the end of this video, we'll know whether all-in-one AI platforms are actually the future, or if specialized tools are still impossible to replace. Let's get started. If you've watched this channel for a while, you already know I spend a lot of time testing AI tools. Every week there's another best AI video generator, another image model, another editing assistant, another productivity app claiming it'll save creators hours every week. And honestly, many of them are genuinely impressive. The problem isn't that AI tools are bad. It's actually the opposite. There are almost too many good tools now. Every creator ends up building their own workflow by combining 5, sometimes 10 different platforms. At first, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but after months of creating content, those little interruptions start adding up. Generate something, download it, upload it somewhere else, rewrite the prompt because the next AI understands instructions differently, wait for another generation, download again, upload again. Eventually, you're spending more time moving files than making creative decisions. So today, instead of reviewing another AI model, I'm testing an entirely different idea. Can one platform handle my complete YouTube production workflow? To make this as realistic as possible, I'm not creating random clips. I'm building an actual YouTube video from scratch. That means starting with absolutely nothing and ending with a finished project ready to publish. Let's see how far Flova can really take us. All right, here we are, a completely empty workspace. No script, no storyboard, no visuals, nothing. Usually, this is where I'd open ChatGPT first. I'd spend 15 or 20 minutes brainstorming ideas before I even think about making visuals. But today, everything has to happen right here. So instead of jumping between tools, I simply tell Flova what I want to create. Create a cinematic YouTube video explaining why electric bikes are becoming the future of city transportation. The tone should feel modern, educational, and visually engaging. That's it. One prompt, almost immediately. Flova begins organizing the project. Instead of only writing paragraphs of text, it starts breaking the idea into actual sections. Introduction, main talking points, suggested visual moments, scene progression. It already feels less like talking to a chatbot and more like working with a creative producer. One thing I really like here is that I'm not just getting random text back. The platform is already thinking ahead. It's considering how each section could eventually become a video. That makes a surprisingly big difference. Normally, I'd have to figure out all of those connections myself. Here, they're already built into the workflow. Of course, the first version isn't perfect. There's one section that feels a little repetitive, so instead of starting over, I simply highlight that part, ask Flova to make it shorter, and within seconds, it's rewritten while keeping the rest of the structure intact. That might sound like a small thing, but it's exactly the kind of refinement that usually forces me to switch between different AI tools. So far, I haven't left the platform once, and honestly, that's already making the creative process feel much smoother. Now that the concept is ready, it's time for what I think is one of the most important parts of any video: turning a good idea into something people actually want to watch. Normally, this is where my workflow starts getting messy. I'll have my script open in one window, a Google Doc with visual notes in another, maybe Pinterest or YouTube for inspiration, and then I'll manually figure out which shots belong to each section. It's not difficult, but it's definitely time-consuming. Inside Flova, the next step happens much more naturally. Instead of asking me to plan every shot manually, the platform starts transforming the script into a visual storyboard. Within a few moments, every section of my script is paired with a suggested scene. For the opening, it proposes a crowded city street filled with traffic. The next scene shifts to someone riding an electric bike through the same city. Then it introduces close-up product shots, wide cinematic drone angles, and lifestyle footage to match each talking point. Instead of staring at a blank page wondering what I should show next, I already have a complete visual roadmap. Of course, I don't just accept everything. This is still my video. For example, one of the suggested scenes focuses on a generic city skyline. It looks nice, but it doesn't really communicate the point I'm trying to make. So I click on that scene and simply tell Flova, replace this with a cyclist weaving through heavy traffic while cars remain stuck in traffic. A few seconds later, the storyboard updates. That one small change already tells a much stronger story. This is something I really appreciate. The AI isn't replacing creative decisions, it's helping me make them faster. As I continue reviewing the storyboard, I notice another opportunity. The script talks about how electric bikes save time during rush hour. Instead of showing someone already riding, I decide the story will feel stronger if we first show someone frustrated inside a traffic jam, then cut to the bike effortlessly passing everyone. Rather than rewriting everything, I simply drag the scenes into a different order. Immediately, the flow feels much more cinematic. Little adjustments like this normally happen much later inside my editing software. Here, I'm making those decisions before generating a single frame. That saves a surprising amount of work later. By the time I finish reviewing the storyboard, the project already feels like a real production. Every scene has a purpose. Every transition makes sense, and for the first time in this challenge, I can actually imagine the finished video. Now comes the exciting part. A storyboard is only a plan. The real question is, can Flova actually turn these ideas into visuals that look good enough for a YouTube video? Let's find out. This is where most AI workflows usually fall apart. Creating one great image isn't difficult anymore. Creating 10 or 15 images that all look like they belong in the same video, that's much harder. Normally, I'd open an image generator, write a detailed prompt, generate 4 versions, pick my favorite, download it, and repeat that entire process for every single scene. If one image doesn't match the others, it's back to rewriting prompts again. With the storyboard already in place, Flova already understands the context for each scene. Instead of starting from scratch every time, I simply generate the visuals directly from the storyboard. The first results appear surprisingly quickly. The opening city scene looks clean, the lighting feels cinematic, the composition matches the mood I described earlier. The cyclist scene also looks great, but there's one issue: the bike doesn't really stand out. It blends too much into the background. Instead of generating everything again, I select only that scene and give Flova a simple instruction. Make the bike a brighter modern electric bike with stronger contrast against the street. A few moments later, the updated image appears. That's much closer to what I had in mind. The best part is that I'm only changing one scene. Everything else stays exactly where it is. That might sound obvious, but if you've worked with multiple AI tools before, you'll know how often a single change forces you to redo half the project. As I continue generating the remaining scenes, I notice another advantage. The overall visual style stays surprisingly consistent. The lighting, the colors, the camera angles, they all feel like they're part of the same production rather than images coming from completely different prompts. That's incredibly important for YouTube because even if every individual image looks amazing, viewers immediately notice when the visual style constantly changes. Consistency is what makes AI-generated videos feel professional. By the time every scene is finished, I haven't downloaded a single file. I haven't uploaded anything somewhere else. Everything is still organized inside the same workspace. And honestly, this is probably the smoothest image generation experience I've had while making long-form content, but images alone don't make a video. Now it's time to bring everything to life, because static visuals are one thing. Cinematic motion is something completely different. So far, everything has been preparation. We've got the idea, we've got the script, we've got the storyboard, we've got the visuals. Now comes the part that usually takes the longest, actually turning those images into a video that feels alive. Normally, this is where I'd leave my image generator, open a completely different AI video platform, upload every image one by one, rewrite my prompts, choose camera movements, and hope every clip ends up looking consistent. If one scene doesn't feel right, I regenerate it. If another scene moves too fast, I regenerate that too. It's a process I've repeated dozens of times. Today, I'm staying inside Flova. Instead of manually uploading every image, Flova already knows which visuals belong to which scene, because everything has been built inside the same project. That immediately removes several unnecessary steps. Now I can focus on directing the video instead of managing files. For the opening scene, I want a slow cinematic push-in through heavy traffic, so I adjust the motion settings before generating. For the next scene, where the rider moves past the traffic jam, I want something more dynamic. Instead of a slow push, I choose a tracking camera that follows the bike from the side. That instantly creates more energy and reinforces the point I'm making in the narration. A few moments later, the first clips are ready. Honestly, the movement looks much smoother than I expected. The camera doesn't just zoom randomly, it actually feels intentional. The second clip also looks good, but I notice one problem. The movement is a little too fast for the tone I'm going for. This is supposed to feel premium and cinematic, not like a fast-paced commercial. So instead of accepting it, I regenerate only that scene using a slower camera motion. That's much better. The pacing now matches the rest of the project. As I continue reviewing the clips, another scene catches my attention. The transition between two shots feels a little abrupt. Rather than starting over, I simply adjust the order of the clips and regenerate the transition. Small refinements like this are exactly what make the final video feel polished. And because everything is happening inside one workspace, those changes happen surprisingly quickly. What I appreciate most here is that I'm not fighting the software. I'm making creative decisions while the project evolves. Instead of constantly exporting and importing files, I'm simply refining the story. By the time every clip has been generated, the project already feels remarkably close to a finished YouTube video. But visuals alone aren't enough. A video without sound still feels incomplete. So let's see if Flova can also handle one of the most overlooked parts of content creation, the audio. If you've ever edited videos before, you already know that music can completely change how a video feels. The exact same visuals can feel emotional, exciting, or completely flat, depending on the soundtrack underneath. Normally, after generating my video clips, I'd open another platform just to search for background music. Then I'd import everything into my editing software, trim clips, adjust the pacing, line up the soundtrack, add transitions, and finally export the finished project. It's another series of steps that breaks the creative flow. Inside Flova, that process stays connected. With all my generated scenes already placed on the timeline, I can immediately start reviewing the complete sequence. The first thing I notice is that the introduction feels a little slow. Instead of dragging everything into another editor, I simply trim the opening clip by a couple of seconds. Immediately, the pace improves. Next, I move to the transition between the traffic scene and the electric bike reveal. I want that moment to feel more impactful, so I slightly extend the second clip, giving viewers an extra moment to appreciate the visual before moving into the next scene. These are small edits, but they're exactly the kind of refinements that separate an average video from one that feels professionally paced. Now it's time to add music. Rather than browsing through endless music libraries, I simply describe the mood I'm looking for. Modern, cinematic, inspiring background music with a premium technology feel. A few moments later, Flova generates music that fits surprisingly well with the visuals. I preview the sequence again. The soundtrack gives the entire project much more energy without overpowering the narration. Finally, I watch the complete video from beginning to end. And this is probably my favorite part of the whole process. At no point did I have to stop and think, which software do I need next? Everything happened inside the same workspace. The planning, the storyboard, the visuals, the animation, the editing, the music, even the final export. That uninterrupted workflow makes a much bigger difference than I expected. Now, the challenge is complete. The only question left is, was replacing my entire workflow actually worth it?
Every morning, millions of people battle the same war. Traffic, noise, wasted time. A city that was built to connect us is grinding to a halt. Enter the electric bike. Efficient, clean, fast, and surprisingly transformative. E-bikes are not just a trend. They are quietly becoming the backbone of a new urban movement.
Missions grilled. That's what feels professional to me now. My income went up 30% after I switched. This thing pays for itself.
I've now completed an entire YouTube video without opening another AI platform. So let's compare this experience with the workflow I've been using for the past year. and see whether an all-in-one platform is actually the better approach. Now that the project is finished, let's answer the question I started this video with. Can one AI platform actually replace an entire content creation workflow? After going through this challenge from start to finish, I think the answer is a little more interesting than I expected. Let's start with the workflow I've been using for the past year. Normally, creating a YouTube video looks something like this. First, I brainstorm ideas with a writing assistant. Then I copy everything into another document. Next, I move to an AI image generator. Once those images are ready, I download every file, upload them into an AI video generator, rewrite prompts because every platform understands instructions differently, generate the clips, download everything again, open my editing software, import all the assets, find background music, arrange the timeline, export the finished project. None of those tools are bad. In fact, some of them are among the best in their category, but every switch creates friction, every download interrupts momentum, every upload slows the process, and every platform expects me to think a little differently. Those small interruptions don't sound important until you repeat them 20 or 30 times while making a single project. Now compare that to what I just experienced today. I started with an empty workspace, wrote the idea, generated the outline, built the storyboard, created the images, animated them into video, adjusted individual scenes, edited the timeline, added music, and exported the final result, without ever feeling like I was constantly moving between different pieces of software. That doesn't necessarily mean every single feature is dramatically better than a specialized tool. What impressed me wasn't one individual AI model. It was how naturally everything worked together. Instead of spending my attention managing software, I spent it making creative decisions. And honestly, that's the biggest difference. AI isn't just about generating better content anymore. It's about removing unnecessary work between every creative step. Now, I don't think any tool is perfect, so here's what stood out after actually using Flova for a real project. The biggest strength is definitely the workflow. Everything feels connected because the script, storyboard, visuals, video generation, timeline, and music all live inside the same workspace. The project keeps moving forward without constantly breaking your focus. I also liked how flexible the editing process felt. I wasn't forced to accept the AI's first result. Whenever I wanted to change a scene, adjust the pacing, or regenerate a clip, I could do it without rebuilding the whole project from scratch. That made the experience feel much more collaborative than simply pressing a generate button and hoping for the best. Another feature I found genuinely useful is skills. Rather than starting every project with a blank page, skills provide reusable creative workflows that already understand the type of content you're trying to make. For creators who produce similar videos every week, whether it's YouTube content, product ads, or short-form videos, that can save a surprising amount of setup time. Of course, there are still situations where dedicated software makes sense. If you're creating high-end films with complex visual effects, or you're doing advanced color grading or detailed audio mixing, you'll probably still want specialized professional tools. But I don't think that's really Flova's goal. It's designed to help creators get from an idea to a finished piece of content as smoothly as possible. And for that audience, I think it does a really solid job. So, did Flova completely replace my workflow? For this challenge, I'd say it came much closer than I expected. When I started this video, I honestly thought I'd eventually have to open another application, maybe for editing, maybe for organizing files, maybe for making small adjustments, but I never really felt the need. Instead of jumping between 6 different websites, I stayed inside one creative environment from the initial idea all the way to the final export. That changed the experience more than I expected, because the biggest bottleneck in modern content creation isn't always the quality of AI anymore. Most AI models today are already incredibly capable. The real bottleneck is everything that happens between those models. Moving files, rewriting prompts, keeping projects organized, trying to maintain a consistent creative style across different platforms. That's the problem Flova is trying to solve. And after building an entire YouTube video inside it, I can definitely see the appeal. If you're a YouTube creator, a freelancer, a a marketer, or someone creating social media content on a regular basis, having one connected workspace can save a lot of time and make the entire creative process feel much less fragmented. Will I completely abandon every specialized tool I own? Probably not. There will always be situations where dedicated software gives you more control, but for the majority of content I create, I can absolutely see myself using this type of workflow much more often, because at the end of the day, the less time I spend managing software, the more time I get to spend creating, and that's exactly what AI should be helping us do. If you'd like to try Flova for yourself, I've left a link in the description below so you can explore everything I showed in today's challenge. I'm genuinely curious what you think after watching this. Do you see yourself switching to an all-in-one creative workflow, or do you still prefer combining separate AI tools for each part of the process? Let me know down in the comments. I read as many of them as I can, and I'd love to hear how your own workflow compares. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I test the newest AI tools, break down real creator workflows, and share practical ways to make content creation faster without sacrificing quality. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.